Hello everyone, today I'm here with Luis Vargas, LSV. I don't think you need any introduction, but just to make sure, you have 10 Pro Tour top 8s with 1 win, 15 GP top 8s with 5 wins. If the information is correct, you're also in Hall of Fame, you're also Vice President of Channel Fireball, you also stream, you're also a game designer, you kind of have it all. So I'm really happy I can talk to you today. How it's going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on. I've watched a bunch of your previous interviews, so
thank you.
Glad to be here today.
Awesome. First thing that I want to ask about is, I don't really want to forget about it, is that they announced the end of MPL and Rivals and like end of professional Magic. Can I just hear your opinion about that?
Yeah, so I think that the MPL was a flawed system pretty much from the start and was implemented even worse. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it's going to end is not a surprise to me. And honestly, that part of it doesn't really make me feel bad because I thought the MPL kind of sucked, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But I am very sad that they're not going to support Pro Magic in the way they used to, because the Pro Tour was such a beloved institution and gave so much of us so much structure and awesome opportunities. And I think was really good for Magic too over the course of its 25-year history. So I'm overall pretty bummed about it. I would hope that whatever comes next has interest to people and gives us an opportunity, because I don't know, at the end of the day, what got me into Magic and really got me started with all this was just wanting to compete against the best.
Mm-hmm. Do you still think you're gonna play a bunch of tournaments if there is like no Pro Tours or anything like that?
It's really hard for me to say. It'll depend on what it looks like. The money has not like been my primary motivation for quite some time. It never really was. But on the other hand, I'm not going to fly somewhere if we're not playing for anything. Like, it has to matter. And it mattering can take a lot of different forms. But if we don't care about it, if people don't care about it, then I'm not going to be interested in it. And if people do care about it, I might be interested in it. So we'll have to see what it looks like.
I see. We're going to follow up on Magic in a little bit, just to get to know you a little bit more. I asked you a little bit on Twitter. You told me that you like cooking, hiking, you like to play Dungeons and Dragons. That's what I'm actually curious about the most. I know that it's like a game where you gather with people and you just play like a role player game, but you just like roll dice and stuff like that. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so it's a game that can kind of be whatever you want. It's a little like how, most of the Magic that me and you have played is like one-on-one, highly competitive, bring your best deck, you're just trying to win, right? Commander's the same game, but it looks very different than how we tend to interface with Magic. D&D can really be that whole spectrum. You have some people who play it like a tactics game, like a war game, like Warhammer, right? Where you have like a bunch of miniatures and you're trying to figure out the best way to fight and you care about the combat, and that's like mostly what you focus on. There's some people who play it without stats or dice or miniatures and just kind of role play through all of it. It's like they're an interactive story. And then there's the games that I tend to run, because I usually run the game. It's in the middle. You have both elements to it. And been running a game over Discord because we haven't been able to get together but in person, but probably going to start playing again in person here soon.
I see. Is it always like you start a game and you finish the game during that day, or are you just like following like each time on the previous game and you just go on and on? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a longer game. You can do one-shot sessions. I've run those before when like you have a group that you're not going to meet again, or you want to do something like with new people, or you just feel like playing a one-shot thing, and then the story's short enough that you start and finish in the same day. But the campaigns I tend to run, it's like got an overarching goal, and then kind of like they say, the journey is what you really, the story is really the journey that you're going along the way. And so I think a good campaign usually takes about a year to run, but every individual session you get something done.
I see. So the another thing that you mentioned is cooking. Sometimes on Twitter you like post something that you cooked. Is that something that you got into recently, or is that like a long time hobby? What is going on with that?
I really started to learn how to cook in college when I kind of had to, because if you want to eat and you don't want to go out every time, you got to cook. I really gotten into it probably the last 10 years, so still a pretty long time. And I love cooking. I love cooking for groups. We tend to host a lot of the gatherings we have here in Denver because, as you know, there's a ton of our friends, Magic players here in Denver, and we'll have like barbecues and stuff like that. And I'll do most of the cooking for those. I've gotten good at multitasking. I can make like 3 or 4 dishes at the same time.
I see, that's awesome. So let's get into Magic. You have a degree in political sciences, but I assume that most of your time is like, or used to be spent on Magic. Did that just like kind of happen at random, or like what was going on with that? Did you just like didn't really know and then you became really good, so you decided to do that? Like, can you just like maybe talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Most of my time in college was spent on Magic, not college. So I'm not unhappy about that, obviously, is the way it turned out. But I definitely got less out of college than I could have if I had focused more on it. Though I did graduate, happy enough with that. But yeah, what happened basically was I started playing in PTQs when I was in college. And I never really considered going to one of the tournaments because flying to a Magic tournament sounded crazy to me. Like, why would I fly to a Magic tournament? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. But then there was a pro tour in San Diego. I was going to college in Northern California, so you could drive there. So I decided I wanted to play in it, and I won a PTQ for it. So we drove down. I went 8-7. Didn't make any money, but had a great time. And I was like, I want to play more of these. So I started to get into it more. I ended up qualifying for a couple more pro tours. I lost playing for a top 8 in London, got like 14th or 13th, and kind of got hooked. From then on, I started going pretty hard at it, and then Cheon ended up moving in with us because he was kind of drifting aimlessly as Magic players tend to do, and after we were on the same team in the national team in 2006, he ended up moving in. We ended up really just kind of dedicating a lot of time to Magic, playing in a bunch of pro tours, and both of us the same year, 2007, got on the train and kind of became pro Magic players.
I see. You actually won your first Pro Tour top 8. Is that right? With elves, is that correct? That was kind of recent after you got onto the Pro Tour. What I'm curious about is that in a top 8 you played against Kenny Oberg, which played Desolator, which was like seemingly unwinnable matchup, but you like boarded into this weird elf deck with like Mycolod, Umezawa's Jit, and stuff like that. Did you actually had that cyber plan going into the tournament, or did you just kind of figure it out on the fly? If you can maybe talk about it a little bit, because I think that game or the match was awesome. So
we didn't really know about what like his deck specifically because I don't know. This is also back when like tournaments were more the Wild West of like you just didn't know what people were going to show up with, and we really liked the GTA sideboard plan. We had a Mycoloth against like the removal decks because it was like a good way to just play a bigger creature. And then the night before when I was testing with Cheon, he beat me 9 games in a row, and I just was like, all right, I'm just gonna go to bed, whatever. Like I can't win this matchup. He has Chalice of the Void and Trinisphere and Engineered Explosives, all this stuff. I started 0-2, but I did end up boarding in the Jitas and Mycoloth because I thought that was and Viridian Shamans, and that was my best chance to win. I couldn't really combo him very easily. And yeah, I ended up beating him by like Summoner's Pacting, playing Mycoloth as a 4/4, paying upkeep, and just attacking with him a bunch of times.
Then I think the following Pro Tour, a couple Pro Tours after that, you lost to Nassif in finals. There is this awesome play where he like thinks about the cryptic comment and stuff like that. That was awesome. I think that was like the time where you also started with Channel Fireball. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that was a PT Nagoya in not Nagoya.
Kyoto.
Kyoto, that's what it was. PT Kyoto in 2009, and that's when we actually kind of weren't ready to launch Channel Fireball, but after I got second, we just like wanted to go ahead and announce it because that was like a better time too, and the website kept crashing because like we weren't quite ready. But that match, I actually me and Marshall did coverage of the match again a decade later. We replayed the match and kind of did our own coverage of it, watching it on like the 120p cameras where it's like completely blurry. You can't even really tell what's going on. It was a big match. I mean, I still think about that match. It was one of the best matches I've ever played, and it's funny. I'm still testing with Nassif here. Was it 12 years later? So it's definitely a match I think about a lot. I'm glad how I played. It would have been nice to win, but I don't really feel regrets about it.
I already mentioned it at the beginning that you're a vice president of Channel Fireball, but I actually don't know if that means that you're like you kind of own it, or you're just like big part of it. Like, what does it mean exactly?
So I am one of the founders. I'm one of the owners of Channel Fireball. And what that means has changed over the years. Sometimes I'm more on the marketing side and planning and managing. I'm not doing that right now. Right now, I'm more on like the content side again. And regardless of what exactly I'm doing, I do a lot of talking to people and connecting people who like, because I'm the face of the website in a lot of ways. So often when people want to talk to Channel Fireball, they reach out to me first, and I can kind of point them in the right direction, whether that's customer service, like people having problems with their accounts, or someone who wants to write an article, or someone who wants to sell us an alpha starter. I had someone actually approach me yesterday with that. So I do a lot of kind of just making sure people are talking to the right people, which it feels like something I do in a lot of the different jobs I do. It's an important role sometimes.
Since the beginning, you did a lot of content, like all these like top 10 videos, or like just like playing a Model League and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's kind of normal. Everyone is doing content, like, it's just a normal thing, but it wasn't that way before. How did you came up with that idea? Was it just like obvious to you that that's like the right thing to do? Because no one else was doing it back then, if I remember correctly.
When I first really started, it was kind of in its infancy. There was definitely people writing about Magic, but the video part of it hadn't really been explored. Twitch didn't even exist yet, right? And what happened, actually, this is kind of why we launched Channel Fireball. Even the name Channel Fireball, the in the logo, right, was like the little fireball coming out of the TV. The joke was, we were going to do videos. We were going to have TV channels. You could watch my channel, or you can watch Raptor's channel, and he's one of the guys who started, right? Jerry T was there originally, and we did draft videos, and that's kind of what put us on the map. It doesn't sound very special nowadays. Everyone does that because it's just obvious, right? But back then, just no one was doing that. Like, there was only text articles, which had started. I mean, that was from the 90s. People had been writing about Magic ever since there was Magic, but it wasn't that revolutionary of an idea. Like, I don't think we're that smart for coming up with it, but we were the first person to just like do it. And that matters a lot, that's the sort of thing that really can kind of change how you're perceived and how your business does. And in this case, we were one of the first people, if not the first, to do just a bunch of good video content, and that kind of got people into it.
Okay. Another big point in your career, at least in my opinion, was when you decided to go join commentary team, but before that you top-8 3 Pro Tours in a row. So what I'm curious about is that maybe because you decided to go for coverage, you maybe played Infinite to just like show everyone, or did that just happen at random? Can you maybe like talk about it a little bit, because it's just crazy to top-8 3 Pro Tours in a row at that age?
Yeah, it kind of just happened. Like, it's funny. I didn't think 2 of the 3 Pro Tours, our decks weren't like that special. Like, one of the first one was when we played the colorless Eldrazi deck, and that deck was broken. Like, that deck was just a busted deck. That was the best team finish we've ever had. We had like, I think it was something like 10 people in the top 24. Just an absurdly good finish, though. At the end of the day, despite 3 of us in the top 8, the blue-red Eldrazi deck was way better in the mirror, and we all got crushed by JC Tao and Andrew Brown in the mirror. But the other 2 decks I played was like the black-green Cryptolithrites deck, which wasn't actually that good, and then Bant Company, which was a great deck, but like it was the most known deck in the world. It wasn't like we had anything particularly revolutionary there. So I was really happy to have, the opportunity to top 8 those Pro Tours, and it felt really good. But I also, it just showed me how much like luck there is in Magic. Like, I think I was playing really well then. I think I really, was doing my best to put myself in a good position. But at the end of the day, like, no matter how good you are, it matters if you draw your 4th land on turn 4 to cast your Collected Company and you hit 2 3-drops. Being good won't make that happen more often than not, So that's the sort of thing that I didn't really feel like it was weird to step away to do coverage or anything. It just, I was riding the wave, and I was happy to take a break. But I'm glad I went out that way. That was pretty cool. But I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
I see. So you joined the commentary team, but I think you stayed there only for like 1 year or 2 years, and then you decided to come back. Were you just missing Magic too much, or why did you decide to do that?
It was a combination of missing Magic because, I got to see all my friends compete and go to the tournaments and be like, okay, I do want to do this. And then the other thing was the commentary team was just run terribly. I think that it there was a lot that frustrated me about it. I mean, look, here's the advantage of the fact that Pro Magic is ending. I feel a little bit more agency to kind of speak my mind. And I think that the commentary could have been way better, and I got frustrated that they didn't listen to any of my suggestions, which, maybe that's egocentric of me, but I thought I could bring more improvements and play more of a part in the process. That's not really what ended up happening, and I probably would have gone back anyway. So that's not like fully to blame, but that was part of my frustrations for sure.
You're also a game designer at Direwolf, mostly, well, if the information on the internet is correct, mostly focusing on the game Eternal. You're doing that for almost 10 years now. How did you manage to like have a full-time job? Well, I don't actually know if it's a full-time job, but have a job and also like do all of this other stuff. That just seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, I spent some time where I was working too much because I was full-time at Direwolf for like 8 of those years or something. I've stepped back a little now to focus on different things, but part of it was I just spent too much time working, if you want the honest truth. I mean, I never thought Pro Magic was a full-time job in the sense that the whole time I played Pro Magic, that I never only did that. Because as much time as I would spend playing Magic and testing for tournaments, you still have time left over. Like, that wasn't enough to like fully capture me. So I always was doing something else, whether that was content or Channel Fireball, or in this case, wanting to learn more about game design. That was a big part of what drove me to work at Direwolf. Was this was a new cool challenge. I wanted to learn about it. I wanted to increase my skills, and I'm really glad I did. I've learned a ton while being there.
Now that professional Magic is over, do you maybe think that you're gonna focus on maybe game design a little bit more, or what do you think is coming for the future?
Sure. I mean, the Pro Magic part of Magic still didn't take that much time for me. Like,
I see.
I mean, just given especially, it's kind of confusing because we had COVID, right? So there was no traveling these last year and a half. I couldn't go back to traveling as much as I used to. I know that much. But if there was just a couple tournaments a year like this, plus like the league weekends, I could balance that and other stuff pretty easily. It's not like I'm getting a ton of my time back, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did a little bit more on the game design side of things, especially since, while you're right that I mostly worked on Eternal, I've gotten to work on a bunch of different board games because Direwolf does board games as well. And that's been a cool thing to learn as well.
You mentioned the board games. Can you maybe talk about it a little bit? Can you name something, or like what you're working on?
The one I've liked the best, and I think that the overall like the most successful one for Direwolf has been Clank. It's a kind of board game that's like a combination of deck building, moving around a map, trying to escape a dragon, get treasure, that sort of thing. And that's actually had a couple sequels because it's been received really well. Most recently, I worked on a Dune Empyrean, the Dune novel.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah,
like a really famous sci-fi novel, and we got the rights to do a board game of it, and worked on that actually with like Sam Pardee and Justin Cohen, some other Magic players you may know. And our creative director, Paul Denon, he's the one who kind of creates all these games, and he's just like a master. So one of the things that's always driven me in my life is when I find someone who's like that good at something, I want to learn from them. And that's part of what I owe my Magic success to. Is I think Team Channel Fireball, we all learn from each other. And this is like another instance of that, where being around people who are really good at stuff can help you get better at it, and you can kind of figure out what they're doing and why. So I've been really lucky to be able to work on these board games with Paul.
Board games are interesting. I would kind of assume that in today's age that you have all these computer games, maybe board games wouldn't be as popular, but maybe that isn't the case. Like, did you maybe see like a decrease in numbers, as the computer games are getting more popular, or is that not the case? Do you know anything about that?
It's interesting because you would think that, but there's a lot of people who don't want fast twitch, super graphics. Like, they're not in for like a first-person shooter or whatever. Because, I mean, if you are, there's plenty of places to find that. But board games are still pretty popular, and one of the things that Direwolf does really well is digitalize board games, because one of the things they do is take board games from other companies but make digital versions of them, like Root is a good example. And that's a game that is made in paper. It's a physical game, but they made it so you can play over Steam. And I mean, look at how popular like Hearthstone or Magic is online, right? We're still talking about like kind of paper games. I mean, Hearthstone's never a paper game, but you're still playing a card game. It's not like a video game like Grand Theft Auto, and there's still some desire of people to play with these objects that are kind of similar to real life objects, even though there are obviously more graphical versions of things out there.
that will be all for today. Thanks for your time. It was awesome. I think everyone probably knows where to find you on the internet, but maybe if you want to tell them, you can if you want to.
For sure. I'm at LSV on Twitter or Twitch, and you can go to Channel Fireball. I have something up there just about every day.
If you like the video, please click on the like and subscribe button, and I see you next time. Bye.